During WW2, survival wasn't just about battlefields. Families had to make food last for years with imports cut off and farms under attack. These 15 foods saved millions of lives during rationing and starvation. But which one could save you today? During the Second World War, staying alive didn't just happen on battlefields. It also happened in kitchens, basements, and pantries across the world. Families on both the Allied and Axis home fronts had to make their food supplies last during years of rationing and shortages. With imports cut off, farms attacked, and supply chains constantly under threat, regular people had to become experts at storing food that would last not just weeks but years. Many of the tricks they used work just as well today for anyone thinking about long-term food security. These weren't fancy foods, they were the difference between going hungry and staying alive. Looking back at what families stored during wartime teaches us about toughness in the 1940s. It also shows us lessons about being prepared that still matter today. One of the most important wartime foods was flour. Bread was the main part of almost every meal. Fresh loaves might go bad quickly, but flour stored in sealed cans or bags lasted for years if kept dry. Families also stored oats, barley, and cornmeal. These could be turned into oatmeal biscuits or flatbreads. These grains had lots of calories, could be used in many ways, and could be stretched further with things like potatoes or powdered milk when supplies ran low. Protein was one of the hardest things to find during rationing, and beans filled that need. Dried beans and lentils lasted for years in storage. They gave people energy and protein when meat was hard to get. Families who planned ahead often had bags of beans stored in their basements or attics. They knew beans could be boiled into soups, mashed into spreads, or mixed with vegetables to make filling meals for the whole family. Meat rationing hit families hard, which made canned foods super valuable. Spam, corned beef, and canned fish like sardines and salmon became key parts of wartime meals. These were made to last for years without refrigerators. While they weren't fancy, they gave people the protein and fat they needed. Canned fish also brought healthy fats at a time when fresh fish often went to the military. Many families came up with recipes that hid the boring taste of canned meats. They mixed them into pies or stews to make them taste better. Milk was heavily rationed, and children usually got the fresh milk first. Families used evaporated and powdered milk to meet their daily needs. Powdered milk could be mixed with water for cooking, while evaporated milk made sauces and baking richer. These products could last for years unopened, making them perfect to store up. For families, this meant children could still have some kind of milk long after the fresh supply ran out. Sugar was another rationed treat, and it became really valuable. Families stored what they could and often used honey or syrups instead. Sugar wasn't just important for making rare desserts sweet. It was also needed for keeping fruit fresh in jams and preserves. Honey, with its natural germ-fighting properties, could last forever, making it one of the most valuable foods in any wartime pantry. Salt was more than just seasoning during World War II. It was a way to preserve food. Families kept large bags of salt not only for flavoring, but for curing meat and fermenting vegetables. Its ability to make fresh food last longer made it essential in every home, and it's just as important for being prepared today. Hot drinks boosted spirits as much as they fed the body. Real coffee and tea were hard to find, so families stored what they could, often rationing it very carefully. When supplies ran out, roasted barley, chicory, or even ground acorns became common substitutes. These makeshift drinks provided comfort during those hard years. They showed how families found ways to keep their routines even when the real ingredients were gone. Raisins, prunes, and dates were commonly stored because they lasted long and gave concentrated energy. Dried fruit could sweeten breads, oatmeal, and puddings when sugar was scarce. They also provided important vitamins in limited diets. Families knew that having even a small amount of dried fruit could break up the sameness of daily meals. While fresh vegetables didn't store for years, certain tough vegetables could last through winter when stored properly. Cabbage, turnips, potatoes, and carrots became the backbone of many wartime meals. Families stored them in cool, dark basements or earth mounds. This ensured a steady supply of food even during months of shortages. Canning was really a household skill during the Second World War. Families preserved fruit as jams and chutneys while vegetables were pickled or fermented. Glass jars filled with preserves lined the shelves, providing bursts of flavor and nutrition throughout the year. Vinegar-based pickling also created foods that could last for months without spoiling. Cooking fats were honestly quite hard to come by, so families learned to treasure every single drop. Lard, drippings, and margarine were stored whenever possible. Not only did they provide vital calories, but fat also helped preserve cooked foods. A layer of fat poured over cooked meat, for example, sealed it from air and kept it good to eat longer. Imported foods were limited, but pasta and rice were prized when available. Both were easy to store, lightweight, and could stretch small amounts of meat or vegetables into a full meal. A single pound of rice could feed a family for days when mixed with beans or broth. Vinegar served as both flavoring and a way to preserve food. Families stored it to pickle vegetables, marinate meats, and create sauces. Its long shelf life and usefulness made it an essential wartime staple. It ensured that even the plainest meal could be preserved or made better. Though not loved for their taste, hardtack and dry biscuits were tough, long-lasting sources of calories. Originally military food, civilians also learned to bake their own hard biscuits that could be stored in cans for months. They became emergency backups when other foods ran low. Chocolate wasn't just a luxury, it was happiness in solid form. Families stored cocoa powder and chocolate bars whenever they could find them. Beyond the comfort factor, cocoa provided energy and could be mixed into drinks or baked goods to make small rations feel special. Looking back at these 15 foods shows just how creative families became when faced with scarcity. They stored what lasted, preserved what they could, and changed recipes to stretch everything further. Many of these same foods, flour, beans, canned meats, powdered milk, salt, honey, vinegar, remain central to modern preparing and survival strategies. The conditions may be different today, but the principles haven't changed. Being tough begins in the pantry. Storing food wasn't about hoarding luxuries. It was about creating security in a world where tomorrow's supply was never guaranteed. Families who mastered this balance got through rationing and shortages with greater strength. For anyone looking at food security today, these lessons are as practical as they were 80 years ago. If you found this deep dive into wartime food strategies valuable, don't forget to subscribe and share this with fellow history lovers. Every overlooked corner of World War II tells a story, not just of battles and generals, but of the everyday toughness that kept families alive.